Imagine a company that succeeds not just for a few years, but for decades. Imagine leaders who are remembered not only for results, but for the culture they built, the people they shaped, and the impact that lasted long after they were gone. This is the core idea behind the strategy legacy. This book is not about quick wins or trendy business tactics. It is about how strategy becomes meaningful only when it creates a lasting legacy. From the very beginning, the book makes one thing clear. Strategy is not a document, a slide deck, or a plan locked inside a boardroom. Strategy is something that lives inside an organization. It shows up in decisions, behaviors, habits, and culture. Most importantly, it shows up in how people act when no one is watching. The author challenges the traditional idea that strategy is only about competition, positioning, and financial performance. Instead, the book argues that the strongest strategies are built on identity. Who are we? Why do we exist? What do we stand for? How do we want to impact the world? When these questions are answered clearly, strategy stops being confusing and starts becoming natural. Many organizations fail not because they lack smart people or good plans, but because they lack clarity about who they are. They chase trends, copy competitors, and constantly shift direction. Over time, this creates confusion, disengagement, and burnout. The strategy legacy explains that without a clear identity, strategy becomes fragile. With a clear identity, strategy becomes durable. At the heart of the book is the idea that leaders are not just responsible for performance, but for legacy. Legacy is not something that happens after retirement or death. Legacy is being built every day through choices, priorities, and behavior. Every meeting, every hire, every decision either strengthens or weakens the legacy of the organization. The author challenges the traditional idea that strategy is only about competition, positioning, and financial performance. Instead, the book argues that the strongest strategies are built on identity. Who are we? Why do we exist? What do we stand for? How do we want to impact the world? When these questions are answered clearly, strategy stops being confusing and starts becoming natural. Many organizations fail not because they lack smart people or good plans, but because they lack clarity about who they are. They chase trends, copy competitors, and constantly shift direction. Over time, this creates confusion, disengagement, and burnout. The strategy legacy explains that without a clear identity, strategy becomes fragile. With a clear identity, strategy becomes durable. At the heart of the book is the idea that leaders are not just responsible for performance, but for legacy. Legacy is not something that happens after retirement or death. Legacy is being built every day through choices, priorities, and behavior. Every meeting, every hire, every decision either strengthens or weakens the legacy of the organization. The author introduces a powerful framework that explains how organizational identity is formed and sustained. This framework is not presented as a rigid formula, but as a living system. Each element influences the others, and together they shape how strategy is designed and executed. Purpose sits at the center of this system. Purpose answers the question of why the organization exists beyond making money. Profit is necessary, but it is not inspiring on its own. Purpose gives meaning to work. It helps people understand how their efforts contribute to something larger than themselves. When purpose is clear, people feel connected. When it is vague or missing, work becomes transactional. Vision builds on purpose by painting a picture of the future. Vision is not a detailed plan, but a compelling direction. It describes what the organization is striving to become. A strong vision motivates people because it gives them something to move toward. It creates hope and ambition. Without vision, even the best strategies feel empty. Values define how people behave while pursuing purpose and vision. Values are not slogans on a wall. They are standards for decision-making. They guide how people treat customers, colleagues, and partners. The book emphasizes that values only matter when they are lived consistently, especially under pressure. When leaders compromise values for short-term gains, they damage trust and weaken the legacy. Strategic choices translate identity into action. This is where many organizations struggle. They have lofty purpose statements but fail to align their choices with them. Strategy legacy requires saying no as often as saying yes. It means choosing what not to do, even when tempting opportunities arise. Clear choices protect focus and reinforce identity. Capabilities determine whether strategy can actually be executed. These include skills, systems, processes, and resources. The book stresses that capabilities should be built deliberately to support identity-driven strategy. Chasing capabilities that do not align with purpose leads to wasted effort and confusion. Strong organizations invest in what truly differentiates them. Culture emerges from repeated behaviors over time. Culture is not created by announcements or training sessions. It is shaped by what leaders reward, tolerate, and model. The strategy legacy explains that culture is the silent force that determines whether strategy succeeds or fails. A misaligned culture can destroy even the smartest plan. Leadership behavior acts as the most visible signal of identity. People watch leaders closely, especially in difficult moments. What leaders say matters, but what they do matters more. When leaders act in alignment with stated values and purpose, trust grows. When they don't, cynicism spreads quickly. Stakeholder relationships extend identity beyond the organization. Customers, partners, communities, and investors all experience the organization through its actions. The book highlights that long-term success depends on creating value for multiple stakeholders, not just shareholders. Organizations that ignore this eventually lose legitimacy and support. Measurement and feedback close the loop. What gets measured influences behavior. The book encourages leaders to measure not only financial results, but also cultural health, engagement, trust, and impact. Feedback helps organizations learn, adapt, and stay aligned with their identity over time. Throughout the book, real-world examples illustrate how organizations succeed or fail based on how well these elements are aligned. Some companies achieve impressive short-term results but collapse when leadership changes because their identity was never deeply rooted. Others endure crises and disruption because their purpose and values guide them through uncertainty. One of the strongest messages in the book is that strategy is not owned by executives alone. Everyone in the organization plays a role in shaping and sustaining strategy. When identity is clear, employees at all levels can make better decisions without waiting for instructions. This creates speed, consistency, and empowerment. The book also addresses the role of change. Change is inevitable, but identity provides stability. Organizations with strong identity can evolve their strategies without losing their core. They know what must change and what must remain constant. Without identity, change feels chaotic and threatening. Leadership transitions receive special attention. Many strategies fail during leadership changes because new leaders try to impose their own agenda without understanding the existing identity. The strategy legacy argues that responsible leaders honor what came before while thoughtfully evolving the organization. Legacy is not about preserving everything, but about preserving what truly matters. The book challenges leaders to reflect on their own personal legacy. How do they want to be remembered by their teams? What impact do they want to have on people's lives? Leadership is not just about authority, but about influence. The answers to these questions shape daily behavior more than any leadership theory. Another key theme is trust. Trust is described as the currency of strategy execution. Without trust, alignment breaks down, communication weakens, and fear takes over. Trust is built through consistency, transparency, and fairness. It is lost quickly when leaders act in self-serving or inconsistent ways. The book does not shy away from the difficulty of building a strategy legacy. It requires patience, discipline, and courage. It often means sacrificing short-term gains for long-term health. It means having difficult conversations and making unpopular decisions. But the reward is resilience and meaning. Employees who understand and believe in the organization's identity are more engaged. They take ownership. They care about outcomes beyond their job descriptions. This creates a virtuous cycle where performance and culture reinforce each other. The strategy legacy also reframes success. Success is not only measured by growth or market share, but the positive impact the organization has on people and society. Organizations that think this way attract talent, loyalty, and long-term support. The book emphasizes that identity-driven strategy is not static. It must be revisited and renewed as the organization grows and the environment changes. Leaders must regularly ask whether actions still align with purpose and values. Reflection is presented as a leadership responsibility, not a luxury. In the later parts of the book, the focus shifts to practical application. Leaders are encouraged to communicate identity clearly and consistently. Messaging should be simple, authentic, and reinforced through action. Overcomplicated language creates distance